Okay, so I've been wanting to make this video for a little while now, and I want to talk about proper terminology when it comes to body modification. As you can see, I'm into body modification. I have facial piercings, I have tattoos, I have large earlobes, and that's kind of where I want to start, with earlobes and stretched piercings in general. This is something that really bothers me because I hear it all the time. And it's not so much from people that aren't into body modification as it is from people that are or have very large earlobes but have done it improperly and don't really know what they're doing. So we don't gauge piercings, we stretch them. I can understand where the term gauge came from, just because up to a 00 we use a wire gauge measurement. Standard for most piercings is a 14 or 12, generally. So after a 00, we go to inches and increments of inches. Like my plugs are 3/4 inch with some Teflon tape, and I will explain the whole Teflon tape and why I use it later on in another video. And you know, I've heard people have asked me at work, just being out, what size are your gauges? They're not gauges. If they're solid like this, then they are plugs. If they are hollow, then they're eyelets. The only time we use a different term is when they are silicone eyelets. Then we call them ear skins. And if you wore them, you would understand, because it feels like you're wearing nothing at all when you're wearing ear skins. So that's probably the biggest offender with proper terminology. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the bite piercings that people are getting, and they're generally around the mouth area. I think that's, my opinion is that that's where it comes from, just because it's near your mouth and you use your mouth to bite things. I mean, it makes sense to me. But if I went into my piercer and said, "Hey Julia, I want to get some demon bites," she would have absolutely no idea what I was talking about. We don't, in the piercing community, in the body modification community, we do not use the term bites. If you're getting dual side lip piercings, I've heard them called snake bites, but they're dual side lip piercings. If you're getting double Maryland piercings, or the upper lip, which is right here, it's called double Maryland piercing. Some people call them Monroes. And I've seen many different, bite style piercings. One was a standard labrae piercing and a standard philotrum piercing, which is right in the middle of the lip up top. Some people call it a Medusa. I forget what they said it was called, but it was awful. Like, no piercer is going to have any idea what you're talking about if you go in and say, "I want, spider bites." I mean, some might, but I very highly doubt it. Another thing that really bothers me is the term belly button piercing. And that's just from an anatomical sense. A lot of this is from an anatomical sense. Anatomy is a huge part of becoming a piercer. And, yes, they'll know what you're talking about when you say belly button, but the belly button isn't actually a part of your body. It's your navel. So, just try to think about that when you're going into a shop. Another thing I've heard is with microdermals, which are just single little, they're also called dermal anchors. And you can get them pretty much anywhere. They're hard to keep. I don't think I've ever known anybody to have one for more than maybe like a year. But I've heard them called, implants, and I've heard single point piercings, which really doesn't make any sense. But they're just microdermals or dermal anchors. Either is acceptable. And another thing, and as you've noticed probably, proper terminology isn't so much mixed up when it comes to tattoos as it is with piercings. With piercing, there's, you know, a little bit more technical terminology, you know, just based on anatomy and things like that. But I've heard people do this all the time. They say tattoo gun. A tattoo is not a gun. It's not shooting anything. It's a machine. It's made by a machinist in a machine shop. So it's a tattoo machine. And that's really kind of it as far as proper terminology goes. My feeling on the whole topic, just in general, is that if you're going to take on something as serious as body modification, you know, you should damn well educate yourself as much as possible. Just because, you know, things can go very seriously wrong. You know, you could get an infection and end up having to amputate your ear or something, like something really stupid like that. You know, like I've seen people get cartilage piercings at the mall with like an ear piercing gun and end up getting like gangrene in their ear. And, you know, it's something that is a very serious endeavor. It does have its health risks, and as long as you are educating yourself both on proper terminology and on finding a very good shop, then, you know, you should be fine. Like, I've never had any serious problems with any of my body modifications, and, you know, I have body modifications that most people don't know about that are actually more socially acceptable than, say, like 3D implants on the forehead, which I don't have, as you can see. You know, and another thing that I did want to kind of touch on, since I am on the topic of body modification today, when you're out and you see someone with very large earlobes, or, you know, excessive tattoo work, or even just like 3D implants like in the hand or pointed ears or something like that, don't be a dick. Don't laugh at them, don't point and stare, don't go ew really loud and, you know, try to make your friends laugh, because you look like an asshole. You know, if you have questions about it, don't walk up to somebody that has a 3D implant in their hand and say, why would you do that to yourself? Like, if you're curious about it, you know, go up to them and say, hey, I'm really curious about this thing you have done. And, you know, most heavily modified people will, you know, say, you know, well, this is what it is and this is how it's done, and, you know, you can touch it if you want in some cases, like with 3D implants and things like that. But, you know, as long as you're not an asshole, a heavily modified person isn't going to be an asshole. And that just goes along with stereotypes, and I will probably talk about that more extensively later as well. So that's all I really have to say about it. Just educate yourselves. Don't be a dick. So that's it. Be good, kids.